Welcome everyone to an ESO build video. This is the Shield Breaker, a stamina Dragonknight for solo content. You can use this build to get through Veteran Maelstrom Arena quite easily, and also Vacheron Hollows on Veteran. And if you're also inclined, you can get through Veteran Dungeons, though not really DLC Veteran Dungeons. Though, if you give it a go and you're successful, hit me up in the comments and tell me how it went. I'd really like to know. Now, for the character itself. We're running an Imperial for max stats and cost reduction of abilities. However, any stamina character will work. The only thing you really need to change is the food. Now, for the attributes, we are running 64 into stamina to get as much stamina as possible. For our food, we're using our Tame Takeaway Broth for that max health, health recovery, max stamina, and stamina recovery. However, if you don't have a Tame Takeaway Broth, you can use the dubious Cameronian Throne, which is just slightly weaker than the Tame Takeaway Broth. Now, as I mentioned about using any stamina race, if you are using a red guard, I would suggest that you use flat food. That just gives max health and max stamina, as you won't have any need for the extra recovery, as the red guard will have that covered. So you can get a little bit extra health and a little bit extra stamina. Now, the Munda Stone we're using is the Lover Munda Stone for that extra penetration while we're solo. If you're running group content, I would switch this to either Thief or the Shadow Munda Stone for that extra critical, chance, or critical rating and damage. Right, and onto the gear, the meat of the build. The build itself is constructed around shields, and for that we have 3 sets that help with that perfectly. And the sets are as follows. We have the Parabellum set, which gives max stamina, max health, max stamina, and when you deal damage you gain a damage shield that absorbs up to almost 10,000 damage for 6 seconds. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. This shield will stay up as long as it's cooldown, meaning that you can keep this shield up at all times, as long as you're dealing damage. Now, this set is also gotten from the Maelstrom Arena. If you haven't done the Maelstrom Arena, or are unable to do it at the moment, you can switch this out for Bahara's Curse, which is an overland set that you can get from Hugh's Bane, or you can buy it from a guild merchant, so it's an easy set to get. The thing with that set is you will lose the damage shield, but you will gain a small AoE that will do damage and you will heal from it. So it's a very good cut-in if you haven't gotten this set yet. We're also using the Maelstrom's Perfected Bow. It doesn't need to be perfected. You can have the normal. Both are gotten from the Maelstrom Arena for completing them. The Perfected from Veteran and the Maelstrom's Bow from normal. However, if you can't get this bow, you can swap in the Agility Bow until you're able to get the Maelstrom's Bow. Now, with the Agility Bow, you'll just get max stats, and you will lose out on the 2-piece bonus from the Maelstrom set, which is to increase damage from your volley by 430 by each tick. This bonus increases by 143 every time volley ticks, up to a maximum of 8 times. So this will give us a good extra boost to our backbar damage and our AoE damage. And now onto our second set. This is a monster set. So we're running the 2-piece, the head and the shoulders. This is the Iceheart set, and you can get it from Dire Frost Keep on Veteran. This set adds almost 700 critical chance for the 1-piece, and for the 2-piece, when you deal critical damage, you have a 20% chance to gain a damage shield that absorbs almost 6,000 damage for 6 seconds. While the damage shield holds, you'll deal almost 1,000 frost damage to all enemies within 5 meters of you every 1 second. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds, and the damage scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Now, bear in mind that the shield from this, that does proc every 6 seconds, and last 6 seconds, does require you to do critical damage. Unlike Parabellum that runs for 6 seconds, and has a cooldown of 6 seconds, will proc from just damage. You will need to do critical damage to proc Iceheart. Now, for our third set, this is Hexus Ward, which can be gotten from the Deadlands Overland, or you can buy it from guild merchants. So this is another set that you can buy. So with this and Bahara's Curse, you can essentially buy the sets. So you do have a good starting point. Now, with Hexus Ward, it adds critical chance, weapon and spell damage, and critical chance, and dealing direct critical damage grants you a damage shield that absorbs up to just over 14,000 damage for 6 seconds, another shield that lasts for 6 seconds. This effect can occur once every 7 seconds, so this set does last 6 seconds, and its cooldown is 7 seconds, so 1 second less than the rest. However, it is a much beefier shield. Now, down to the traits and the enchants. So we are running 5 medium. So our head, chest, shoulders, waist, hands, legs and feet are all medium sets for that extra stamina and weapon damage. Everything has maximum stamina, and we're running full divines to to give us a big increase to our penetration. For the rings and the jewellery, we are running on 2 items of jewellery. We are running weapon damage and bloodthirsty to increase our weapon damage as much as we can. And on our 3rd piece of jewellery, we are running stamina recovery and infused. This is just to increase stamina recovery so we can keep bouncing out abilities as much as possible. Now, overall, on this set, down to the slightly nitty-gritty, we're running a 2-hander, preferably a mace, for that extra penetration. And we're running precise. We're also running a poisoned weapon enchant because we're a Dragonknight, so we get back 1,000 stamina every time we add a poison status effect to an enemy, so that increases our sustain again. On our back bar for our Maelstrom bow, we are running weapon damage and infused. We are running this because we are running endless hail, so this will keep weapon damage and our spell damage increased continuously as long as endless hail is firing. Doesn't matter if it's when you fire it from the back bar, because that damage is still going on while we're on our front bar, it will keep going. Okay, now on to the skills and the passives. Right, we are running a 2-hander on our front bar, so we're going to be using Brawler, which is a morph of Cleave. And with Brawler, you focus your strength into a mighty swing, dealing just over 6,000 physical damage to enemies in front of you. This is a good cleave move. We can get a good bit of AoE from this. You also gain a damage shield that absorbs just over 6,000 damage for another 6 seconds. Each enemy hit increases the damage shield strength by 50% up to 300%. So this damage shield can increase in strength, and it goes for another 6 seconds. So we are continuously running shields. And if something happens where you're unfortunate enough to have all your shields dropped, this is a nice quick way to put back up a shield nice and quick. It is a big safety net. From the Varden skin line, we are also running Venomous Claw, which is a fantastic dot ability. This will do damage over time. You will rake in an enemy with your claw, dealing 4,500 poison damage and an additional 15,000 poison damage over 14 seconds. The poison seeps into the target and deals increased damage the longer it lasts, dealing 20% more damage every 2 seconds. Meaning you don't want to spam this. You want to hit this onto your target and you want to leave it, as the damage will increase the longer it's on. If you keep spamming this on, it will do less damage. Now next, from the 2-handed skill line is Stampede. Now, Stampede is a morph of Critical Charge, and it allows us to launch across the earth and smash an enemy, dealing just over 6,000 physical damage to the enemy you have targeted and all nearby enemies. This attack is always a critical strike. Stampede will always proc Ice Heart, and it will always proc Hexus Ward. This is why you really want to have Hexus Ward as a full body more than anything, because no matter what, this will proc it. Meaning on our front bar we now have 3 shields that are going to proc, including our Brawler. So our front bar can keep up just about all of our shields. Parabellum, Hexus Ward, Ice Heart, and Brawler. We're also taking Reverse Slice from the 2-handed skill line. That is a morph of Reverse Slash. Now, this is our main AoE spammable. We spin around striking the enemy down, dealing just over almost 4.5 physical damage, deals up to 300% more damage to enemies with less than 50% health. So it's also an execute ability. Other enemies nearby take 70% or 78% of the damage inflicted to the primary target. So you can use this to cleave down multiple enemies at once. Here's quite a good bit of cleave damage on this build. You want to be able to take down as many enemy trash as possible to get through those public dungeons and overland content and normal dungeons in general. The last main ability on the front bar is Cauterize. This is a morph of Inferno, and you can get this from the Ardent skill line. This is one of our main heal abilities. You activate an Aura of Flames, which launches a fireball at yourself or an ally to cauterize their wounds every 5 seconds, healing them for 5,500 health. While slotted, you gain Major Prophecy and Major Savagery, increasing your spell and weapon critical by 2,500. This will up our critical damage on our front bar, so we have a bigger chance of proccing our shields from Brawler, our Venomous Claw, our Reverse Slice, and from our ultimate ability, which can be gotten from our Dragonic Power. So Ferocious Leap, which is a morph of Dragon Leap, which is a very cheap ultimate, will cause you to launch yourself at an enemy, dealing over 15,000 flame damage to all enemies in the area, knocking them back and stunning them for 2 seconds. And After leaping, you gain a damage shield that absorbs almost 30,000 damage for 6 seconds. This portion of the ability will scale with your max health though. So more health, more shield, less health, less shield. However, that's another damage shield. We have damage shields coming out of our eyeballs. We are in shield heaven with this build. Now on to our second bar. Now our second bar is our bow build. So with that, we are grabbing Endless Hail from the bow skill line, which is a morph of volley. This launches a multitude of arrows into the sky to rain down, dealing just over 1,000 physical damage to enemies in the target area every 1 second for 12 seconds. Now there is a 2-second delay before this fires, but this is a big AoE damage, and it's getting increased damage from our Maelstrom bow. So when we fire this, after time, just like Venomous Claw, this is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So you don't want to spam this. You want to fire this and you want to leave it for its 12 seconds before reapplying it. Our next skill on our back bar is our Noxious Breath, which can be also gotten from the Ardent skill line. Noxious Breath is a morph of Fiery Breath, and this is also an AoE damage. Now, this exhales a corrosive blast to enemies in front of you, dealing just over 6,000 poison damage and an additional 11,000 poison damage over 14 seconds. This is another big dot skill. This will also inflict enemies with major breach, which will reduce their physical and spell resistance by almost 6,000. So now your enemies will take more damage from you. Not to mention being a poison skill, meaning that if you employ a poison dot because you're a Dragonknight, you will get stamina back. That goes for Venomous Claw as well. These two skills will give back some stamina, which will help with our resource gain. Now, onto our next ability, which is Consuming Trap. You can get this from your Soul Magic skill line, which you are given. You are given this free. So this will start out as Soul Trap. You will start with this. You do not have to get this. You do not have to learn it. It will already be there. Morph this to Consuming Trap. This will allow you to put a dot on an enemy that will deal 7,500 magic damage, but we're running a stamina build. So this will do just over 11,000 physical damage over 10 seconds. The damage dealt is based on our highest offensive stat. And if an affected enemy dies, you'll fill an empty soul gem and heal for just over 5,000 health. You'll also restore over 2,500 magicka and over 6,000 stamina. The portion of this ability will scale off our max health, magic and stamina. This is a fantastically strong dot, and in places like delves, dungeons, any enemy rich place, you can pop this on them, and when they die, you're going to get lots of resources back. Put this on more enemies for more resources. This can save you quite a lot and will also help with your resources extremely much. Our next skill also comes from the Draconic Power skill line. That is Volatile Armor. Volatile Armor is one of our main defensive skills. This runs off of magicka, so you're not running into your stamina too much. Volatile Armor is a morph of Spiked Armor, and when you use it, it will release your Inner Dragon to gain Major Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by almost 6,000 for 20 seconds. That is a big defense increase. You will release a spray of spikes around you, causing enemies hit to take just over 6,000 magic damage over 10 seconds. This is another dot. A lot of these skills means that you can fire them off on an enemy and you can walk away and you can go on to the next enemy. You can just slot everything on and keep going. You can let the dots do the damage. And while this is active, the armor will return almost 1,000 magic damage to any enemy that uses a direct damage attack against you within melee range. So if someone is hitting you, this will cause them to take damage again, which is also very handy and a nice bonus. Onto our last skill that isn't an ultimate. This skill is Vigor, and we are using Echoing Vigor, which is its morph. So Echoing Vigor is our main back bar heal, but it heals over time for us. You can take the other morph, which is a instant burst heal over 4 seconds, while Echoing Vigor will last for 10 seconds. The reason why we're taking Echoing Vigor is because we don't want to be spamming it, because this costs quite a bit of stamina to use, and we want it to heal slowly over time, keeping us topped up in health while our shields are going. And not to mention, if you're running group content, this will heal your party members as well. This will heal just over 12,000 health over 10 seconds. Keep this up at all times, along with your Cauterize, so you will have big heals coming in at all times. Onto the passives. From the Ardent Flame line, you want all of the passives, seeing as I've completely missed that. On our back bar, we are in fact running Standard of Might from the Ardent skill line. Now, this is one of our main damage ultimates. This, costing 235 ultimate compared to our almost spammable Dragonflight, this is a slightly longer and heavier hitting ultimate. So you'll call down the standard, dealing 3,500 flame damage every 1 second for 20 seconds to enemies, and it's also applying Major Defile to them, reducing their healing received and health recovery by 16%. And while you stand in the area, increases your damage done and reduces your damage taken by 15%. You will do more damage and you will take less damage. This is fantastic to use on bosses. Keep Dragonflight for the small mobs, or if you're about to hit dirt and die. Now, from the Dragonic skill line, you want everything as well. Okay, next up is Earthen Heart. We are grabbing everything here, though you don't need Eternal Mountain because we're not using any Earthen Heart abilities. Right, next up is Mountain's Blessing. We don't need to take this either because we haven't got an Earthen Heart ability slotted to use. Right, next is our weapons. So onto the two-handed skill line. We're using Stampede, Brawler, and Reverse Slice, so we're going to grab all of the passives. Okay, next up is our bow. So we're only taking Endless Hail, but even so we still want all of the passives. Okay, now up to the armor passive, which is the medium armor. We're using all 5 pieces of medium, so we want all of the medium passives. Now we're moving on to the Soul Magic skill line, where you got Consuming Trap. In here, we have 3 passives. They're not essential, you don't need them, but if you want them, they are handy. Alright, next up is the Fighters Guild. Now, we don't have any Fighter Guild abilities slotted. We don't need everything from here. We do need Banish the Wicked. We'll generate 3 ultimate whenever we kill an enemy. This will help us get back ultimate gain nice and quickly. So that is necessary. Banish the Wicked is the only one that we need from this skill line. And then the next one up is Undaunted. You want all the passes from Undaunted. And now onto the Assault skill line. Now from here, we're only really going to need 1. And that ability that we need is Continuous Attack, which is the first passive you get. Now, Continuous Attack increases your weapon and spell damage by 10% and Magicka and Stamina recovery by 20% for 10 minutes after you capture a lumber mill, farm, mine, or keep. Now, that's only if you're doing Cyrodiil. However, outside of Cyrodiil, we gain Major Gallop at all times, increasing our mount speed by 30%. This will help you get around the map a lot quicker as we are soloing things. So take that, it will save you a lot of time. And of course, the last in the skill lines is our racial skill line. You want everything that's in here. You want all of your racial passives. So obviously on the Imperial, you're looking at increased max health, max stamina, and reduces the cost of all our abilities by 6%. And okay, that means now the next up is our champion points. So we're going to make this one nice and quick. So in Warfare, you want to, obviously in the end, you're going to be picking up everything as you go anyhow of the smaller nodes that are non-slottable. But for our slottables, you're aiming for Wrathful Strikes, which grants us 165 weapon and spell damage. Now, if you prefer and you feel you want the extra bit of healing, you can swap this out for Reaving Blows. When you deal direct damage, you'll heal for 70% of the damage done. So you can either choose Wrathful Strikes for more damage orientated, or Reaving Blows for a more defensive position in that. That all depends on you. Play as you want. You're the one playing it. This is for you. Choose what you must. Then we're going to slot Fighting Finesse, which increases your critical damage and critical healing done by 2% per stage. Then we're going to slot Deadly Aim, which increases your damage done with single target attacks by 2%, which gives us 10% extra damage. And we're also slotting Master at Arms, which increases our damage done with direct damage attacks. That is also a 10% increase in damage done. So slot that. And next is the Finesse skill line. Now in the Finesse skill line, we are grabbing Boundless Vitality, which is going to give us 1400 max health. We're also going to be slotting Fortified, which is going to give us 1700 armor. Obviously then you're going to grab all of the smaller nodes, but for our next 2 slottables, you're also going to grab Bastion. Now, Bastion is necessary. No matter what you choose in the skill line, always grab Bastion. This is going to increase the effectiveness of our damage shields by 15%. That is a big increase. We have a lot of shields. We want to be using that. And then for resource regain, we're also going to grab Bloody Renewal. This will restore 300 stamina per stage whenever we kill an enemy. So at max, it's 1500 stamina. So every time you kill an enemy, you're going to get 1500 stamina back. This is huge. Grab this. And then last but not least, the crafting. Now, grab whatever you want in this. This is for you. This is whatever you feel like you want to do. Now, on a side note, for anyone who's stuck around long enough, if you're not really up to using a two-hander, there is a dual wield option. And that dual wield option is this. So, for the dual wield option, instead of grabbing the two-handers, you're going to grab the dual wield and grab all of the passes from dual wield. And instead of Brawler, you're going to grab Igneous Shield from the Earthen Heart. skill line, in which case when you grab this, do grab all of the Earth and Heart passives so you can benefit from them. Then next up, we're going to replace... We won't have the ability to charge at enemies, but we will still have that AoE damage. Deadly Cloak is a morph of Blade Cloak from the dual wield skill line. It enveloped yourself in a protective cloak of razors, gaining major evasion for 10 seconds, reducing damage from area attacks by 20%, and every 2 seconds the shrapnel will pulse, dealing 2,500 physical damage to all enemies within 5 meters. So this will give us major evasion, which will help with Igneous Shield as well, so we have a little bit extra more defensive. And you'll do damage to anything that's close to you. And finally, instead of using Reverse Slice, we're going to be taking Whirling Blades. You'll launch yourself into a lethal spin, dealing almost 6,000 physical damage to nearby enemies. It'll deal up to 100% more damage to enemies with less than 50% health. So if an enemy is under 50% health, they will take double damage. This will also be used as your cleave, as well as your execute ability. And it goes out saying, grab all of the passives from the dual build section. And that is that, folks. That is the Shieldbreaker Dragonknight build. I hope you find this build useful. Put down in the comments how you found it, what use you found for it, and what kind of content you were able to complete with it. If you want more of these types of builds, like, send a comment, even subscribe. I would really appreciate that. And if you want to see content elsewhere, you can find me on Twitch at Dying Legacy. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter. Hey, there's also a Discord if you want to use that as well. But thank you for watching. I hope to make this a recurring thing at least once a week, where I will create random and themed builds. Stuff that isn't really on the meta, but stuff you might find useful, interesting, or just overall fun to play. Thanks for watching. Be awesome.